Hey everyone, welcome back to Ranching Reboot, the podcast that's here to shake up the way you think about food and where it comes from. I'm your host, Brian Alexander. You can find me on social media as Red Hills Rancher, and I'm super excited to have you join me on this journey. If you're someone who's tired of the same old food narratives and is craving something fresh, new, and real, then you're in the right place. Every week, we're going to dive deep into the stories of people who are challenging the status quo in the world of food and agriculture. We'll talk to farmers, ranchers, and food innovators who are doing things differently and making a positive impact on our planet. We'll uncover the secrets behind sustainably raised meat, ethically produced dairy, and the farm to table movement that's changing the culinary landscape. It's not just about food, it's about the people, the passion, and the purpose driving these changes. So, whether you're a foodie, an eco warrior, or just someone who wants to know more about what you're eating and where it comes from, stick around. We've got some amazing stories to share, and I can't wait to get started. Welcome to Ranching Reboot. This week, we're talking about the ins and outs of carbon credits, grassroots carbon, and breaking some of the myths and misconceptions that you might have about carbon credits. But first, I want to give a shout out to all my amazing patrons on patreon.com/redhillsrancher. Thanks so much for your continued support. You guys are just awesome. You can join the rest of the podcast patrons and keep Ranching Reboot on the air at www.patreon.com/redhillsrancher, or just click on the link in the show notes. And while you're at it, don't forget to send in your guest suggestions and questions to me at redhillsrancher@gmail.com, or use the contact form on my website, redhillsrancher.com. Last bit of business, because I am always trying to improve the production value of the podcast. Occasionally, I try something that doesn't quite do what I want it to do, and I don't have time to do anything about it. So the video this week is going to be a little bit different. Audio people, you won't notice anything. But if you're a video podcast watcher, let me know if you like this week's style of video more or less. Just send your thoughts in to redhillsrancher@gmail.com. My guest this week is Hunter Jones. I met Hunter several years ago, and we've developed a great working relationship since then. Hunter is with Grassroots Carbon, and he's one of the good ones. Guys, I want to tell you that I've been involved with Grassroots Carbon since before it was called Grassroots Carbon. I got a pretty solid in with them because of my relationship with Pasture Map and my good friend and former co-host of this podcast, C.K. Vishnevsky. In late 2020, after working really closely with her over the previous 9 months, while COVID had the world shut down, we worked on the Grassroots Carbon program, writing the draft contracts and storage agreements. She convinced me that doing a podcast would be a fun thing to do, and it still is. So here we are, full circle coming back to where it all started with Grassroots Carbon, talking about the future of ranching on the plains. All right, I'll shut up and get on with it. Here we go. How are you, Hunter?
Good, man. Good. It's happy to be here.
Welcome to Ranching Reboot.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been wanting to get on here for a while.
Well, I've been wanting to have you on here. It's just needing to find the right time to get it done. So, why don't you kind of lead us off a little bit and tell us just a little bit about from where you're at?
Yeah. So, Hunter Jones, I'm with Grassroots Carbon. I run the rancher sales team, or should we call internally the supply team. So we're out, gathering ranches, talking at conferences, things like that. And, supplying the carbon credits to our carbon selling team. I grew up here in North Texas. I live just about 20 miles south of Fort Worth right now in a little town called Godley. And our family ranch is about an hour and 20 minutes or so east of Dallas. So, we've been ranching out there. My grandmother was born in the ranch. She's in her mid-80s right now. So she's lived there her whole life, minus the short time to raise my dad and uncles in town. But, we've been out there a long time. And so that's kind of a 30,000-foot view on me. Went to school out at Angel Oak State, got a degree in animal science and range wildlife management. Then went to Sul Ross for grad school for animal science, and then kind of bounced all over. Made it to Phoenix, stayed there for 6 years, and said it's time to come back home. So it's been a ride.
What were you doing out in Phoenix?
Yeah, so I worked for a John Deere dealership. Well, I'll say this. My wife is from Phoenix. She grew up there. And when I was running a farm in Winterset, Iowa, growing native flower and grass seed, we had about 180 different types of flowers, native grasses that we sold for CRP or roadside construction, replanting, things like that. Um, Negative 27 degrees in Iowa with a wife from Phoenix. She said, "Get me out of here now." And it Des Moines was great, but it was time to go. And we'd lived in Texas since college, so it was time to go somewhere else. And we moved back to Arizona, or moved to Arizona. She moved back, and I was working for a software company, ag tech startup, and as a regional salesperson, customer success coordinator, I think was my official title. It's one of those startup titles that, in my opinion, doesn't mean a whole lot, but I was the regional guy that did everything from setting your tractor up with technology to selling it to supporting it. So there was only about 9 of us. So that went out, that went away, as a lot of ag tech startups tend to do. And then the John Deere dealership that I worked with a lot, uh, picked me up as a precision ag technician. So I was doing all the GPS work, and then worked my way through to service manager. And so I was out there for 5 years, 5.5 years, something like that. And then we moved back home 2 years.
Okay, very cool. So, and that's when you started working for Grassroots about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I had a brief John Deere dealership experience here. Um, it was not the same type of dealership. I went from a corporate but family owned dealer in Arizona, 27 locations, to one of the largest dealers in the US and in sales. And we were in a drought for 2 years in a row, 2 summers in a row. And I was selling lawnmowers and small compact construction equipment and compact tractors. And in the drought, it's funny how little you need to mow your yard and how little money you can make selling lawnmowers if there's no one buying them. So that's when Grassroots reached out. Um, and we'd been kind of transitioning the ranch into electric fencing and things like that. My brothers and I had been talking about it, and it just felt right to pay ranchers instead of taking their money, selling them equipment. So it just felt right. It felt like a good move, and getting back into a startup sounded scary, but I guess it wasn't a true startup like I was used to. So it felt a lot, felt right. It felt like the right move, and it's been great coming up on 2 years here at the end of the year. So,
Okay, very cool.
yeah, it's been fun.
You let me look at a rabbit, but I think we're gonna maybe we'll chase that one later. So tell me about
Okay.
what is Grassroots Carbon?
Yeah. So we are, there's a lot of different words for what you want to call it, but we're a carbon credit broker or aggregator or whatever you want to say. What we do is we help large corporate companies offset their carbon emissions and reach their ESG goals, um, whatever that may be, whether they're offsetting their buildings or trucks, all the way down to their end user of their products, whatever it may be. We help those companies reach their goals by providing high quality carbon credits from range land, grazing lands, native range, no row crop, no farming, nothing like that. We are strictly cows, livestock. They make the impact, and that's what we do, and that's what our corporate partners really like. Is it's very natural and native, and we're restoring our soil. So they like it, we love it, and we can pay rangers for it. So that's what I love. That's why I'm here.
Okay, well, let's get into it.
Yeah.
So what sort of an operation is going to be a candidate for Grassroots Carbon?
Well, prior to January, I would say ranges that were in their rotational grazing. I'm going to use that word lightly because you can rotationally overgraze very easily. We can get into that later.
Okay.
Someone that's already, I would say, a step ahead of a conventional set stock grazer, where you're moving your cows, you're watching your soil. Maybe you consider yourself a grass farmer. That is my absolute favorite thing to hear somebody say. that was where we were at. We were looking for the kind of top tier regenerative ranchers or people that were on their way there. Now, as of the first of the year with our new program, we can support both. We can support people like you that are, I would say, well ahead of my neighbors and who will never hear this because they're not into this type of thing.
I don't think my neighbor
And,
listens to the podcast either.
yeah. And then, and now with the new program, we have people people that are in transition from conventional to regenerative, taking their baby steps. And so we have a room for everybody now. We have 2 different programs, and it's nice to not have to turn people away that, well, I don't move my cows, but I really want to. Okay, now you want to. Let's talk about it. Let's meet with some people. Let's plan this out. Let's get this going. So now we have a room for everybody.
But so I guess maybe, I mean, I'm obviously in the first program for the kind of the more advanced folks. Can you maybe tell me a little bit more about this program?
The new one? Yeah. Yeah. So it's called the Soil Enrichment Program. It's on a different standard than our traditional regenerative program like you're on. It's based on the Climate Action Reserve. It's not a new standard. It's a different standard. It's new to us. But it's a little bit different than what you're used to. It is a total of a 30-year commitment from ranchers. You're going to sign up first for 10 years, what we would call a kind of practice change implementation period. That's when we're going to see your practice change. And it's something that is reasonable, verifiable, or verifiable, measurable, and something that a reasonable person would deem a practice change. So, what is measured can be managed. I like to live by that. So let's say we have 5 permanent pastures right now. A measurable impact would be, I'm going to subdivide those and I'm going to have 15 pastures.
Okay.
So that is measurable. Then we have to work on, is it meaningful? Is that going to fit your context? And we work on that through some third-party consultants like Alan Williams at Understanding Ag. Some of our ranchers are going to meet with them. We have some other regional consultants that we're signing up soon, and we'll talk about those when they're announced. Nothing's inked yet, so I don't want to jump the gun, but Understanding Ag is one of our consultants that's meeting with the ranchers every week. I think we have meetings right now, actually. And they're going to help you, look at your range plan, look at what you think you can do, tell you, I might tweak this. This is what I would do. We see ranches in 100 countries. This is what we think's best for your context. So you'll meet with them. So that's all in the initial phases, the planning, the first 10 years. So when we're going to implement those practice changes, you'll get paid for 10 years. You have the option to continue getting paid for 30 years, up to 100 years, actually. If you're under a conservation easement, as long as people are buying carbon credits, you can get paid. Excuse me.
Okay. Does that 30-year contract scare people off, or is that a transferable thing?
It's transferable. So yes, it did scare people the first month we pitched it because we said it's just 30 years. And that's, signing a,
most
not a mortgage.
Ranching that long. Most of us haven't even been ranching half that.
Yeah. And then the average age of ranchers, I believe, is like 64 or 68 years old. So, signing up for an eternity is scary when you don't know what your kids are going to do. So now it's broken out similar to our first contract. It's 10 years worth of management. You can renew that if you want to keep going. And then it's 20 years worth of storage. Don't kill up the ground. No massive soil disturbances. You can keep getting paid if you want to keep getting paid. But if you are transitioning and your ranch stays a ranch, whether there's cows on it or not for the next 20 years, we're not going to claw back money as long as you don't go and, put a replow down and tear it all up.
So you up twice. Is that pretty much the only case where the landowner didn't to pay back? And I get that maybe that's not the only case, but that's kind of the right that's the scenario where somebody would have to pay back is if you go out and you plow up your carbon storage plant.
Yeah, so we're strictly no tillage. There's some things that are okay on both these, like single plucking of cedar trees, things like that. What we don't want is mass soil disturbance. So once that carbon is stored in those live roots, in those big bunch grasses, deep in the roots, and you go and till it, or once it's in there, it's safe until you till it and expose it to the atmosphere, into the air, the sunlight, and the carbon is then released. But yeah, that is probably the biggest factor is mass soil disturbance, as we say, or tillage. Uh, Other things, actively breaching the contract, which is, in my opinion, as a rancher, I'm not going to farm it, so it's going to be very hard for me to breach the contract. Um,
That
Another
that's
thing
kind
is,
of that's kind of what I thought. Like
yeah,
it's going to be really hard to screw this up.
yeah, and the second, probably the most important thing, in my opinion, is monitoring what you're doing and documenting it. So as you know, you're very experienced with Pasture Map. You've seen every iteration from day one to whatever day we're on now. I think you've claimed to be the first Pasture Map customer. I'm not going to argue with that because I was not here, but I'll take it. Um, yeah. So
Christine
Pasture
said
Map,
I was the first person that signed up and sent her money for Pasture Map.
well, I believe it. I'll take it. Um, Tracking what you're doing on Pasture Map is mandatory on our programs. Uh, we need to make sure that you are moving your cows. We need to have the records that you're moving your cows so that we can, you know, say we were to get audited by one of our buyers. We can look at Brian's ranch and say, here's his movements. This is what Brian's doing. This is where your credits come from. No problems. If you're not measuring and not documenting and tracking your movements, it's very hard to defend that to somebody that is not on your ranch. So, that's the most important thing, followed by don't till the place up. So store the carbon, do the practices, show your practice change, document it, and we're going to be all good. Going to be all good. And for Pasture Map, it has had a pretty significant facelift the past year. It's getting fixed, or not getting fixed. It's getting updates weekly. And for our grassroots ranchers, you're going to get kind of white glove experience where we have a team and they're going to help you set up your ranch, set up your interior fencing, get your cows going. If you have problems, give us a call. We will help you with it. So you're not just like, here's Pasture Map, see you around. Hope you do it right. You're going to owe us money back. We're not going to do that. That's not what we do.
I get that from folks that are calling me, asking me about it, kind of like they're still in the thinking about it phase. They're like,
Yeah.
well, how do I map all this on Pasture Map? I said, well, I really don't have any good advice for you because mine's been on there for a long time. And I just went into NRCS and I said, let me have the shape file.
Yeah.
Took the shape file and I just sent it to Pasture Map and they converted it over and uploaded it. So if you're mapped with NRCS or Farm Service Agency, just get that shape file from them and it can be imported to Pasture Map. And you don't have to go recreate the wheel. On the other hand, I've spent a lot of hours staring at the ranch on Google Earth, and I kind of know where the fences are. Plus, I've also ridden a lot of them, so I know where they are. And it was pretty easy for me to map it, pretty easy for me to go ahead and if I want to move anything, it was pretty easy for me to move stuff on the map because I'm very familiar with the ranch and looking at it.
And we will help you get your map too. So if you don't have it through NRCS, when you sign up with us, someone from my team is going to draw your initial boundaries. And then once we contract, we're going to dial in that map as accurate as we can. We're going to get your interior fences set up. It's all needed for soil. So by the time you're signed up and ready to be soil sampled, your pasture map is set up and dialed in to how your ranch is designed. And then anything you add, we can help you subdivide and things like that. So it's not just Yeah, call your FSA guy, see if he's got a map for you. I draw my maps on X. I export them as a KML. I give them to the mapping team, and then they fix my screw ups. So they're much better at it than I am. I'm good at following the county boundaries, but I don't know your subdivisions. So,
Yeah, and if they haven't been there for a long time, it can be pretty frustrating to try to find those from a satellite if they've only been
yeah,
there a year or two.
absolutely.
I was pretty fortunate by the time I was setting up Pasture Map. A lot of my subdivisions had been around for 10 years, and they were really visible from satellite.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get on Google Earth and just figure out where your new fence is if it hasn't, you know, if you don't ever move your electric fence, then you'll start having your fence, you'll start to have some tree line effect. But we don't, on our ranch, we don't have, outside of permanent fences, our electric fences move constantly. So we're constantly shifting our maps. That's just how we work with, we don't have water troughs on the range. It's all ponds and surface water. So if one tank goes low, there goes the plan. We're shifting somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's that's kind of funny you brought that up. Like I know in Texas call a pond a dirt tank or a stock tank. And I understand that. Somebody I can't remember who was telling me this. And maybe this is also kind of a thing over in the Flint Hills that as they've kind of subdivided their pastures and are grazing better, they're getting more grass. Well, they're not getting the runoff from the same rains that they used to because their pasture and their soil is absorbing
it.
water.
Yeah.
That water
That's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. So like you wouldn't be the first person to tell me I got to put in water because I subdivided the pasture. Now my pastures can absorb the water and the runoff's not getting to my stock tanks to charge up my stock tanks.
Yeah. Luckily, we are in a higher rainfall environment than most places. Not most places, but outside of here, I think in Northeast Texas, it's about a 42-inch rainfall area, allegedly. I don't think that actually happens. And if it does happen, it happens in, December and March when we're not growing a whole lot of things. But yeah, that's a problem. I've heard that. And I never thought that I would see that problem, but luckily we get enough rain where we're collecting what falls into it with some runoff. And then we have a large conservation lake on one part of the ranch that luckily our neighbors have a lot of runoff and it fills the lake. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe take a step back and walk through the process. Pretend like I'm just a guy that's we're having our first consult. How do we handle this? How does this develop to a contract?
Yeah. First thing we do now, this is somewhat new process for us to say, we call it the Ranger application. Takes about 20, 25 minutes to fill out. It's a survey. It goes through past, present, and future management practices on the ranch, what you think you can do, what you have now, what you've done over the past, however long you can go back. All that information is helpful if you have overgrazed it for 15 years through 2 pastures. Tell us that. Tell us what you have now and what you're going to do. So that's where we start. Obviously, we start with telling you about the programs. One of my team or me will tell you about the 2 programs, but really we're going to get that rancher application and that map. And we're going to see, based on the map, how much carbon we estimate you'll sequester out of the atmosphere, store into the soil, based on things out of your control: rainfall, soil type, location, climate, all that stuff. Then we can add in that survey and we can say, okay, based on everything out of my control, we think we can store, we can suck a ton of, we'll say 1.2 tons of carbon per acre per year out of the soil. We'll use a big number. You're in Kansas. The Flint Hills are great. 1.2 tons of carbon stored, sucked out of the atmosphere, stored into the soil, out of your control. Then we'll add in your management practices. okay, I have 10 pastures. I rotate this often. What's most important to me is rest, how long I rest. We add all the management stuff in, and then we'll really dial in that accrual rate for your payments. So that's how the process starts is let's get a map, let's get the survey, let's see how much carbon you can store, let's see your location, and then we'll start some preliminary economics. And if that all looks good, if you're happy with the contract, we'll meet with your attorneys or whatever it may be. We'll walk through that with you, meet with your family, sign the agreement, and then the process starts. The process of we're going to set up your pasture map. We're going to get any historical context that we can get on what's happened on the ranch. We're going to meet with Understanding Ag, depending on the program you're in, or one of our other consultants to see, here's my plans. Here's what can get better. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Understanding Ag or whoever regional consultant, please help me. And then get all that dialed in. Then we get soil sampling, send it to the lab, and then get you paid. Whole process can take. We'll move as fast as we can until we get the soil sampling and verification, and then that's all on third parties. And so I would say, once you sign a contract to when you get your first check can be around a year.
It does take a while, and it's a process. But guys, I'll tell you, it's not hard to do from the landowner side. Like I think for a lot of people listening to this podcast, it's an easy sell, and it's not a lot of changes that they're going to have to make to their operation to be able to slide into a carbon contract or one of your new soil enrichment programs.
Yeah. So, we do on both programs look for additionality. Additionality is the big term in carbon. What am I going to do additional to hit that multiplier to store more carbon? So whatever that may be, our basic foundation for the regenerative program is rotational grazing. And then we can do things like add AMP grazing, adaptive multi-paddock grazing. AMP grazing gets a bad rep from conventional people. They think I got to move my cows every 37 minutes. I can't do that. That's not what it means. It means graze to your context, to your recovery, to your rainfall. Don't move your cows every 30 minutes. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Move them once a week, but don't come back and hit that pasture until you're back at the proper state. So, we have to prove additionality. So regen's a little different, rotational grazing is a foundation. Then we add on things like reducing, eliminating synthetics. So we're not killing soil microbiology, reducing or eliminating dewormers. So we're not killing dung beetles, things like that. And that's going to be our multiplier where the soil enrichment program is going to be more quantifiable things on top of some of the practices from regen on reducing chemicals, reducing fertilizers, stuff like that. So proving additionality in documentation, that is the rancher's job. Everything else, we will measure, we will do the labs, we will get it verified, we will get it stamped, put on the registry, get in the doors with these billion-dollar corporates and sell your credits for you. You got to run the ranch, you get paid.
Tell me about the sampling. Talk about the sampling a little bit and how that works.
Yeah. So sampling is based on meter deep core sample, 3 feet deep. There will be some other measurements as well, some 16 or 30 centimeter measurements just to kind of fill in the gaps a little, but it's all based around meter deep core samples over rolling 5-year periods. So we sign the contract, we get the maps dialed in, we exclude things like right behind you. There's that pond. We're going to exclude that. We're going to exclude anything that's dense tree cover. The grass doesn't grow underneath. We're going to, make our exclusions, see your soil types. There's going to be a certain amount of samples per what's called a strata. So per soil type, I'm not a soil scientist. There's going to be a lot of soil samples based on different things, soil types, depths, textures, all that. That's all handled by a third-party company so that we aren't just sampling what we think is the best, because people can do that. We want to get a best representation of the entire ranch. Our corporates and the standards really require that. Uh, so third-party sampler comes out, they do meter deep core samples. They're very professional. They're not going to come out and bog your pasture down. They're not going to rut it up. We don't want any reclamation bills sent to us because they did a bad job. They're very professional. They come out, they sample. Right now we're using Earth Optics. They're very good. They come out, they do that, they send it to the lab. And then outside of that, unless I'm in the area, one of my guys is in your area, or we're just doing our regular monitoring checks, we're going to leave you alone. So soil sampling it's all over the place. People ask me, well, how many soil samples per 1,000 acres? Well, it depends. I've seen a 9,600 acre ranch get 120 samples. I've seen one get way more than that or way less. It depends on what we need to get an idea for what you have in your ground now.
I think they pulled over 70 and they were fast. Like, I watched them do one and I filmed the whole thing, and it was less than 3 minutes from the time they drove up, they set up a rig, pulled that meter core, had it in a bag, broke down, and were moving again. Those guys are like 3 minutes. And
Yeah.
my personal experience with them, and I gotta tell you this. So when they showed up, I told them, I was like, the creek that runs through the east side of the ranch, matter of fact, all the creeks, do not try to cross a creek. Go around. That's what I do, is I go around. I don't try to cross the creeks because they're very mud's deep and you'll get stuck. And the guy said, okay, no problem. You know, we're good at this. We do this all the time. We know how to drive these side by sides. And I just laughed. That evening,
Yep.
they came back like, so yeah, we did kind of bury one of our side by sides, and they told me where it was, but we got it out with the other one, didn't tear up too much stuff. And I just laughed and I said, well, you know, I tried to tell you, don't try to cross the creek because you will get stuck. And they said, we understand now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Wait.
here for a day and a half and gone, and no trace of them being here.
Yep. Yep. They're good. They're professional. They close gates. They're not going to let your cows out. That's what they do. We wouldn't work with them if they didn't do a good job. If they didn't do a high quality sample, we would find someone that could, because we need the highest quality soil samples and things like that to get the range of the highest quality carbon credit payment. So absolutely. Earth Optics is great. I don't get coming from a equipment background. Anytime one of your employees does something wrong, you generally get a nasty foam color text right away. I'm glad that I don't have that problem here with that. So
That's good.
it's a good life to leave behind.
You mentioned something just a minute ago. You're not going to go into areas that have a lot of tree cover. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm guessing this is relevant to the 30-year Soil Enrichment Program as well. I got to burn every 7 to 10 years or my trees are out of control. And
Yep.
and that fire return frequency is going to change up and down the plains. You know, of course, this is on my mind. Fire is on my mind because just a few days ago, I was at the Great Plains Fire Summit down in Canyon, Texas.
I saw a picture of you next to Jenny Pluhar on social media somewhere, I think.
Yeah, she was the moderator for a panel that I did.
Yeah.
It was a producer panel talking about wildfires. Me from Kansas, one of the guys from I know he has something to do with the JA, but he also has property that was affected by Smokehouse Creek and Windy Deuce. Those are the big ones back in February for people that don't follow wildfire or aren't remembering things that much. But yeah, Smokehouse Creek was like 1.1 million acres. Pretty nasty. And then me. So Anderson Creek wildfire in 16. The gentleman sitting next to me was from the Les Canyons Rangeland Alliance, which is straight north of me in Nebraska. So they're like in the southwest corner of Nebraska, not the panhandle, but kind of like southwest
Yep.
Nebraska. And they had a big wildfire, I think in like 16, 17, 18 to help them out with their cedar control. And the last guy was a young man from Ardmore, Oklahoma, that ranches up there in the Arbuckle Mountains. And I think 17 or 18 had a big wildfire clean up a bunch of his place.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting is, and I've been here 15 years and I've watched these cedars and I know how fast they can take over a pasture. So the question is, and not just with the soil enrichment program, but also with the the mainline carbon contract, you talk about you don't want to see a lot of disturbed soil. And I totally get that. And I'm thinking like of the work that I've done down in canyons, with excavators or skid steers, ripping trees out or grinding them down to dust, and thinking, what's that disturbance? Is it less than 1%? Is it less than 2% on the whole? And how much of that disturbance to maintain your habitat are you guys going to tolerate?
Yeah. Good question. Um, on the regen program, the contract reads that prescribed burning is allowed as long as it's not, I believe, a month or 4 weeks before SAM. And that is for things like protecting soil sampling equipment, not really that related to carbon. I believe it was out of Vernon, Texas, somewhere around there. An A&M research ranch in the past 2 years said like, and if I'm saying this wrong, excuse me, but I've heard it a few times now at conferences. Fire in a dry year, uh, the carbon loss in a dry year on a fire is sequestered back in a very dry year in 88 days, give or take. Carbon lost, stored back in about 88 days. In a wet year or an average year, it is about 28 days, about 28 days, carbon lost. But the benefits of controlling woody species outweigh that.
And you guys aren't worried about like carbon going into the atmosphere being released from burning?
Well, we're going to store that back within 100 days from what the studies show. So,
And I think that's a big problem that a lot of people just can't wrap their head around. Like, you're gonna burn the pasture, you're gonna release all this carbon. How are you gonna store it back? Well, the studies say we store it back in 90 days.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I trust the range scientists that have done the studies here. So I'm going to go with that. Yeah. It's stored back within 90 days on average. So no major loss there. As it goes for the soil enrichment program, prescribed burning is something that's a part of your historical, what we call the baseline scenario. If it's something that you've done, um, that's fine. That's part of what you've always done. That will be calculated. If it's something new that you do, we have to calculate, other greenhouse gas emissions and things like that. Um, but when it comes to wildfire, like the one up in the Panhandle that was so bad, we had a ranch affected by that. One of our ranchers lost everything, the entire ranch, all of his livestock. We're going to work with him on pushing that measurement back. If we need to, a year or 2 years, whatever we have to do to wait for a rebound on the ranch. But he will not be penalized for a wildfire hitting his ranch. That is something that I think everyone needs to know, force majeure, acts of God, things out of your control. You're not going to be penalized for that. That's not something you're doing to just disrupt it. So we'll work with you on moving measurements around if we need to wait for recovery.
I know who you're talking about down there around Canadian. Well,
Yep.
won't name any names. I was actually thinking about him quite a bit earlier this week, traveling down through there. And I went through Canyon. Or I'm sorry, I went through Canadian on my way to Canyon. I went down Highway 60. And, I've seen some fire, Hunter. I've seen some big fire. 90 miles. Okay. Wow.
Big.
Yeah. I mean, just you leave Canadian, or you start seeing it before you come into Canadian, because I came in from Woodward. Kind of interesting. There was another big fire north of Woodward, I think roughly 10 years ago. So it was a cedar forest there north of Woodward, and they've never done anything with it. And it's now there's dead cedars with plum thickets and sumac in between, and baby cedars starting to come up that are about waist high now. And the grass is starting to the grass is starting to disappear there in that stretch north of Woodward. And man, I'm glad my place don't look glad I saw this and I saw what the future could be after Anderson Creek, and I got rid of all those trees.
Yeah.
Anyway, down at Canadian, what was burned there at Canadian that I could see from the highway, it's 75, 77 miles an hour. It's starting to look really good. Talking to the folks that ranch in that area, they said that it was really, really rough until June, and they
Yeah.
finally got some moisture and things started growing.
Mm.
And, in my mind, driving through there right now looking like, yeah, okay, I can see where it should be a little farther along. If it was in the Red Hills, I would expect it to be a little farther along, but I think it looked all right.
You should reach out to our mutual friend there in Canadian and ask him for some of his side by side fence comparison pictures for his ranch that is very well ran, rested well, had soil moisture in the ground when the fire happened to his neighbors who have been a conventional set stock type grazer for a long time. In the side by side fence comparison, if that's not enough to get you out of that type of grazing and into better grazing, if those pictures alone aren't enough, then I don't know what would be good for you. It is phenomenal to see the rebound of his ranch versus neighbors, what good management, good soil moisture does versus leaving it alone. Set and forget. The Ron Popeil, set it and forget it.
Yeah. So it was back in March. There was a neighbor needed to burn a property, and I was getting nervous out and not wanting to burn a lot. So I kind of modified the plan. It was just, I don't know, maybe 100, 120 acres, kind of up in the extreme northeast corner of the ranch. That's all kind of just around a road on top of a hill for convenience. But I can go up there to that northeast corner and 4 ranches come together. Okay. 4 different management styles. Like 1.5 different 2.5 different management styles, I guess. There's me, and then there's kinda, my friend north of me, Nate, he does rotate a little bit. He does rotate, but the other 2 guys really don't. And I went up there and I took 4 pictures. I stood in my corner of the fence, faced all 4 directions, and took a picture down every fence line. And I just posted it kinda without context on my Facebook page just to see what people would say. And on the same pictures, I would have somebody tell me that the same pasture was overgrazed and undergrazed, just looking at a different angle from the same pasture.
Yeah.
And looking down the fence lines, you could see definite difference. My part had been used. Some cows had kind of escaped and gone wandering, and they camped up there for a few days. But I managed to get them out. And I took pictures right after I got them out, and all 3 of the neighbors' cows were all standing there in the corner. But so I guess what I'm saying is fence line pictures, I don't know. A lot of times I think they need to be taken with a grain of salt, or they need to have a lot of explaining it because
Yeah. Luckily, go ahead.
nope, I was done.
Yeah. Luckily, when I was there, I stood on the fence line as well because he took us looking for arrowheads, which is probably my favorite pastime on the ranch when I'm not doing anything on any ranch. And you could look down the fence and just see the soil height difference. It's one rolling hill. You can see the soil height difference after the fire, days after the fire was amazing. Just seeing what bunch grasses and building soil can do on one side versus, sod grass prairie or something. The other's a small, annual grasses on the other side. And it's nice to see the pictures because you can see across a large portion of the ranches, and it's great. So I'm a believer. I'm a believer for sure.
Right. So we've been talking about the soil enrichment program that's, a 10 storage or a 10-year catch and then a 20-year storage. Talk about the regen program a little bit, and I guess maybe kind of maybe talk about when somebody puts in an application and that initial
Mhm.
contact through, what is it, grassrootscarbon.com/reboot would be the correct form.
I think that's the direct website. Yeah.
Okay. So when they fill out that form, how do you sort them? How does your sorting hat work? What go to house soil enrichment program or house regenerative program?
Yeah. So we look at past and present management, what you're willing to do. Um, we really look at um, it comes in, it goes to me. I submit an application. There's a back end application I submit over to the operations team, and they're going to look at it, and they are in tune with the standards a lot better than I am because they work directly with the standards to get things approved. So they will know that, okay, this is a reasonable, verifiable practice change from a ranch that has been very conventional. We know where to sort them. We know the next steps. This is someone like Birdwell and Clark. We know where they're going.
Right.
So it's knowing the standards, and there's a process. So the process is a little bit longer than it was historically, but it's because we're trying to deliver the highest quality credit. We want to make sure you're in the right program that you're going to make the most money on, and that you're going to, that's defensible and things like that. So, it's going to go what we call a kind of initial tech check and desk review, and we'll see which program fits best for you. Then it's going to go over to economics. We're going to run the different economic scenarios on the soil modeling, see which one's the best fit. And then, from there, we can generally tell this is a regen ranch, regen standard. This is a car ranch. If it's a car, climate action reserve, soil enrichment program ranch, it's a car SEP is what we say. If it's a car SEP ranch, then they go, next steps would be like third party review with Alan Williams or one of our other regional consultants that you'll meet with. And down that rabbit hole, or you'll go into regen where we'll, get your pasture map, each signed up, get your pasture map set up, your soil sampling done. Because you're not going to need a lot of third party experts telling you what to do. Or not telling you what to do. That sounds bad. No one wants to be told what to do. They want to be coached or given advice. So, yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So how does the payout work? I guess would be the next question that somebody would want to know. How do I get paid?
Yeah. So after we sign the contract, we go through on paid programs. It's going to be pretty well the same. Once we get soil sampling done, the range plan's enacted, the practice changes enacted, things are moving forward. Sampling's done. Then the credits go to the lab. They come back. We submit the application to the verifier. The verifier then is another third party that says, the science is done right. It fits the standard. Everything looks good. Basically gets the stamp of approval. It gets put on the registry. I'm sure this is way more detailed than people that actually do it. God bless them. I have the best job in the world for someone like me who likes to talk to people. So I'm probably skipping some important steps, but it just to get the stamp of approval and get to put on the registry. Most of the time, or right now, your credits are pre-sold when you sign up on both of these programs. So once we get that stamp, we can start issuing payments once it's on the registry. So you get paid, say you sign up in January, you get paid in December. This is just a rough example. We get you paid in December, then we're going to pay you every December until the next soil sampling period. So 5 years later, we're going to soil sample. Then we have to wait for the lab analysis to come back, all that stuff. before we issue that next payment. So your payments years 1 through 4 are somewhat conservative based on what we think you can store, based on models. Models are subject to change every year because models are models. You know, a million data points come back from Colorado State and we have to shift the model. We're going to shift the model. So your payment might shift a little bit. But really the money's all around that, what we call T1 or year 5 soil sample. Once we get that back, we can really start dialing things in and continue going forward.
Okay. So, I mean, we're getting some of us that signed the first contracts, like we're getting close. Like we're getting close to that year 5.
We have some next year.
Yeah. So
It's true.
I want you to kind of explain like how that works, like how those payments work years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yes.
Like the first year, your payment is going to be that's the smallest payment you'll ever get from Grassroots Carbon because the measuring costs and verification costs are taken out of that first year.
Yeah, that's correct. So very, very important thing for ranchers to understand that are listening. This program costs you no money. As long as you're willing, I mean, it costs you no money to enter the program. Obviously, there's infrastructure and things like that you might need. So it might cost you a little bit, but you should be doing that stuff hopefully anyway. There's no cost out of pocket to enter our program. We will cover the soil sampling cost, cover the verification, the lab analysis, all of that stuff, sell the credits. Then we have a revenue share with our ranchers. So 70-30, 80-20 revenue share, depending on the program. We will share the revenue with you after the costs come out. So we submit the applications, we get the invoices back, we sell the credits, pay the invoices back. We have a net, a split revenue with you. Year 1, well, the rancher gets the bigger portion, 70 or 80% of all the net revenue. So very important to understand.
Is that car SEP? Is that the 70-30 split?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So, but also the car SEP will drive a higher price on carbon due to the longer period of time that the contract is. So longer permanence periods drive the price of carbon.
I've had several people over the last 3-4 months like say, well, they're offering me 70-30 or they're offering, I've had questions and I've just wondered where that 70-30 was coming from because I wasn't clear that there was another new product, that new car SEP product.
Yeah. And I've done probably a bad job of talking to you about it, but, yeah, so it's the car SEP drives a higher price. It's a higher quality credit. It's a longer period of time. The climate action reserve is a highly regarded carbon standard. It's now, Vera, climate action reserve, like they're up there in the big standards that corporates are very comfortable spending their money on. So car credits drive a higher price, but it does have a different revenue share right now. Might not be forever. But anywho, yeah, it's going to drive a higher price, but you're still going to get paid annually and still on 5-year measuring periods. I don't know. I feel like I got off track a little bit, but you can correct me somewhere. But yeah, everything's based on 5-year measuring periods and modeled years 1 through 4. You're going to get paid years 1 through 4 until year 5. We're going to measure again. And that's the same on both programs. So nothing out of pocket. We cover it all. We split the revenue. You get the bigger half. And you're never locked into a carbon credit price. Very important. Some other carbon companies, I will never say names on something public like this. If we're having a drink, I'll tell you about it. They will lock you into a per acre fee, a per credit fee for the length of the contract, and not share the upside with you. Don't sign that. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. We're going to share 70% with you, and we're going to always share the carbon credit price increase with you. It started at $16.50 a long time ago. It's gone up significantly since then. We see the price going more That's just the way that it works. Hopefully we get to those European prices. Eventually they're like $120 a credit.
Yeah,
Um,
that'd
but
be
hopefully
nice.
maybe we can maintain voluntary credit. So we're not mandated by, I don't know. We won't go down that governmental rabbit hole. So I know you and I'll get distracted on that pretty easy.
I mean,
Um,
that 120, 120, 140, $150 a ton they're paying in Europe for voluntary credits.
yeah,
Yeah, if we could just move halfway from where we're at to there, I'd be happy.
yeah, absolutely. We have a group of guys, and like Brad, you've met Brad, our CEO, always says we're not happy with the credit price now. We're always trying to get it higher, to deliver higher quality credits, to get higher prices to our landowners. The most rigorous, high quality carbon credit we can deliver and sell to Shell and Microsoft and Nestle and Shopify, the highest quality we can provide to them, the higher quality they'll pay or higher price they pay, and then the more money we have to share back.
Yeah. We were talking about like how the payments were structured.
Yep.
So maybe like let's have an imaginary panhandle ranch.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, just grab some easy numbers that you can run through. How does that
Yeah.
break down years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah. So I'm going to use basic math here. So say we have a ranch in the panhandle of Texas that's going to store out of the atmosphere, we'll just use 1 ton of carbon dioxide because that's easy math. That's 1 carbon credit. And they're on 1,000 acres. Let's just pull this up real quick. 1 second.
That's going to be 1,000 credits.
1,000 credits.
Here.
Yep. Then you're going to have your buffer removed. So your buffer is basically your insurance payment. So if out of 1,000 credits, 10% on the regenerative standard is going to be held back. 10% of all those credits are going to be held back every year to be paid back to you at the end of the contract. On the climate action reserve, it's 16% is held back. That's just what they require. So that's what we have to do.
Little riskier of a program.
Yeah, it's just a little different how it's set up, but rancher payments are really good on it as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and you can get paid for 100 years. So
so back to that first year, you take the 10% buffer out.
Yeah.
And then we're $900. And then out of that, we take all the measuring and verification costs.
Yeah. So measurement and verification, I think, could be a maximum of, have to look at the contract, but I'm going to shoot rough numbers, say $3 per credit, give or take, to get it measured, verified, and put on the registry. All of those have a third party cost with them. That's how we get the highest price of carbon credits through the third parties, and because we're good at what we do. And then you're going to have soil sampling cost in year 1. So say high number, we'll use a high number, $8 an acre. That's a higher number than I've seen. We'll shoot for $8 an acre. So that's going to come out in year 1. After those costs are paid back, we're going to split the revenue back to the ranch and say, it might be, this is rough, I'm just making an example, $10,000 on 1,000 acres.
Okay. That's kind of the number that I wanted. So year 1, you'd be looking at 10 grand.
Yeah. And then soil sampling costs are going to be removed.
Yep. That's after all that stuff is removed. That's the 80-20 split. That's after the 10% buffer gets pulled. And that's after all the verification and measurement costs. 10 grand check for just doing the paperwork.
Yes.
So what's year 2 look like?
Year 2, you're going to remove that $8 an acre soil sampling fee. You're still going to have that $3 verification every single year, but that $8 per acre sampling fee is gone until year 5. So add 1,000 times $8 an acre back to your payment essentially.
So going to be another 8 grand back on top.
Yeah.
In this little example. And you get that for years 2, 3, and 4, correct?
With the increase in credit price. So year one should be the way that we see this going and the way we've seen it happen since we started. Year one should be your lowest credit price, and hopefully it will be your lowest check unless something very, very bad happens in year 5 where you didn't store any carbon and you wrecked the place.
Uh, let's get to
Yeah.
those conditions in a moment. What would you be expecting for our example ranch here in year 5 for a payment? And tell me, and like, please tell me how that works with the buffer.
Yeah. So the buffer is actually going to be repaid later down the road during your 10-year no tillage clause, a little bit later down the road, not directly in year 5. So year 5 is going to be very simple, similar to year 1. Hopefully we've gotten soil sampling costs down by then because of technology. That's
This on early contracts. Don't we get our true up in year 5?
You get a true up in year 5, yes.
Okay.
But your 10% buffer is held a little later. I'd have to look at your initial contract, but the true up, I'll tell you about that. So year 5, let's just say we had 1,000 carbon credits. We took 10% out. We had 800 or 900, sorry. In year 5. What that is not showing you is that we were very conservative years 1 through 4, hopefully, based on our model. And you might, instead of sequestering 1 ton of carbon dioxide, you're going to store 1.5 or 2 tons of carbon, not CO2. So what we're not showing on our projections is that extra. So anything additional that you store over what we've already paid you, we call that the true up. You get that in year 5. So we paid you for storing 1 ton of CO2 every year, but you actually stored 2.5 tons. We're going to pay you that in year 5.
So you've collected 10 grand in year 1, 20 grand in year 2, 3, and 4. And now here we are in year 5, and it comes out you've been storing double what we estimated. You go back for those other 4 years and pay for that double carbon storage.
Yeah, the most important thing for people, not the most important thing, the best thing about payments in our program is we pay you for every bit of carbon you store above that first measurement. We might not pay you for it up front, years 1 through 4. We have to wait for that measurement to come back. But if you store additional, you get paid.
That's what I keep telling guys. It's like, okay, year 1, not impressive. 2, 3, 4, it's going to be good. But if we're doing everything right, it's that 5th year that's going to be like that true up payment is going to be the one that I think a lot of guys are just going to see and go, holy crap.
Yeah. And then, in year 5, after you hopefully get a holy crap, a good holy crap, you move, you get paid for 5 more years. You just keep going. You just push out that tillage clause, or storage agreement. The Climate Action Reserve, the CARSEP program is going to be similar, modeled credits with a measurement in year 1, modeled credits to year 4, measure again, which includes a longer program. We just, we readjust the model at year 5 for what you stored. So it's kind of, you might not see as big a true up payment, but we're going to readjust the model every measurement to, you're still getting paid for everything you store.
Okay. Buffer release.
Buffer release is the 10% buffer on the regenerative program. Can't speak to the first 12 contracts because I haven't reviewed them. I think you're probably within the first 17, maybe, or so, give or take. But buffer payments on the regenerative standard are paid back to the rancher 10 years after that credit was first sold. So the credits we sell in year 1, that gets us to year 11 in the contract, which should be, 10 years later, year 11, then that 10% buffer from, say, 2024 is released in 2030. So sold at the current market rate.
So my 2024 buffer that was held for that 10% that was held from this year you pay me for that I guess that cashes out in 10 years at current
Yep,
market price. Not price today, but market price.
that's correct.
Okay.
And so on and so forth. It's a waterfall. So year 5, you did the last year of the contract, year 15, whatever that carbon price is, you're going to get paid for that year for that 10% buffer. And that buffer is the carrot on the end of the stick to maintain good standing through don't kill up the ground. And if you till it up and you release the carbon, you're not going to get your buffer. That is your insurance payment. Once you're no longer a risk, you get your insurance money back. Wish that was the case on everything, but it's not because it's on this program.
Pretty good insurance program.
Right? CARSAP is different. The buffer is held by the standard or the registry, I believe the registry for regular. So that's their buffer because it's a lot longer term portfolio. It's not an individual ranch program. It's kind of a portfolio. So that's held for the life of the portfolio contracts. We're not going to get payment back on that either. So it's just the way it works.
Okay.
16% held indefinitely. So the standard is safe.
Okay. If people are worried about price, do you think price is ever going to go below $20 a ton again?
I kind of wish I had more involvement in the buyer side, but the way that our buyers have been rolling through the door, the conversations Brad and Hank, our co-founder, have had here recently, I don't see that happening. I really don't see that happening. Some of the prices that we've been selling for lately are good. They're good. They're not going back down. Obviously,
Is it a buyer's or a seller's market right now?
we need supply. We need supply bad. We need ranchers to sign up. We have a lot in the pipeline, but we have a very, very large credit order, not a credit order, very large credit orders to fill. So, I would say it's a seller's market. Yeah. So we're getting good prices for our carbon credits. It's not there's never a bad time to sign up on a Grassroots program because we're always going to share the upside. So that's one thing. So if it's, I don't know, we'll just use, you've said $20, the price is $20 now and it goes to 40 next year. We're going to split $40. People say, I'm going to wait until the price gets better. Why get $20 now and get $40 tomorrow? You're not going to get locked into a price. It doesn't make sense. So, yeah, it's a good time to get in. We're selling a lot of credits. We have some very big things that hopefully we can announce, end of the year with some new buyers. That'll be great. That'll be great for ranchers. Be really good.
Yeah. And I know publicly you can't talk about who a lot of your buyers are, but what sort, the ones you can talk about, who is buying these credits?
Yeah. So, I'll say this because they're on our website and I feel comfortable saying it because we met with them and they've expressed gratitude. I don't know if the right word, working with us. They're super excited about it. Shell is a big buyer of ours. Shell is on the CARSAP program. So they're buying credits for a long period of time. Great partner to have. Microsoft is a big one. Microsoft is also buying credits from us. They're super excited about buying credits with us. They've been a great partner. HEB here in Texas, that's kind of a regional buyer for us. They want to buy credits from Texas because that's where they buy their beef from. Respect that as a several generation Texan.
I mean, that's totally fair. If they want to keep all their credit money in Texas because they're a Texas company and they do business in Texas, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I shop at HEB every single week, so I'm not going to argue there. I don't buy beef from them, though. I buy my own beef.
That's okay.
Yeah. Shopify is an old partner of ours, along with Marathon Oil. So, and Nestle. Nestle is one of our bigger buyers. They are a fantastic partner as well. So those are some of the names. You probably know who Nestle is. You've probably seen a Shell gas station. You probably ran Excel or Microsoft Word. These are the people willing to pay you to restore your soil and store carbon and invest in your ranch,
And
which is good.
Microsoft is one of those companies that, like, they're really bought in. They've been bought
Yeah.
in to trying to reduce their environmental footprint, but it seems like they've been just struggling to find the correct way to do it. I
Yeah.
remember it was just a couple of years ago, um, that I saw a news article where Microsoft was paying over $600 per carbon credit. Over $600 per carbon credit. I'm like, why don't you share some of that cheddar?
Yeah, they're sharing some cheddar. I hate to say it's not $600. That was probably for one of the, uh,
I think it was for something that didn't even work.
yeah, I'm not going to say direct air capture doesn't work because it's a mechanical problem to an environmental or mechanical solution for an environmental problem.
It
But
it's
those
hitting a
credits sell
bullseye on the
for,
wrong target. Mechanical caps hitting a bullseye on the wrong target.
yeah, they sell for a higher price because there's billions of dollars invested in the engineering and the equipment and things like that, then the infrastructure to put it back into the ground, where this cost the you grazing cows better to store carbon.
Yeah, I mean, that mechanical capture, I think I saw the most efficient mechanical capture plant in the world runs on geothermal, and their cost is still like 50 or $60 a ton. Have free energy. So it just I understand why there's industries popping up around direct air capture. Because A, we can say, yes, we're putting CO2 in the ground. You can measure that on a gauge, and you can get governments to throw subsidy and funding at it.
There it is.
So we can start it. I mean, look, we can go start a direct air capture company and hire a couple smart lawyers to petition the government to give us all the subsidies, and then I've never actually build anything or do anything and walk away with millions of dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yep. Or
Or we can graze cows under the sunshine and grow delicious beef.
yeah, there was, whatever belief system you have, this was designed perfectly to do what it does. It's mini solar panels that store CO2 from the atmosphere into the ground that then should give us oxygen and makes this delicious product called beef or lamb or sheep. And it's a phenomenal program. It's very natural, and it's the way the plains were developed. And I'm happy that we get to pay people to do that. So no big ugly machines on your place unless it's a red case tractor.
Why does it have to be a red case tractor, Hunter?
Because you're ugly.
Why can't it be another color?
Don't bleed green.
I'm trying to depopulate John Deere green off of my ranch.
Well, not everybody can be a winner.
I don't know if that's winning, but it's wanting to get away from their service and parts department.
Yeah, that's for anything, side rabbit hole. Parts and service sell tractors. I was a service manager, had a very high producing shop, and it made the salesman's job a lot easier until we screwed up, and it didn't make his job easier occasionally, but that was rare. But parts and service sell equipment, just like, paying ranchers and not making the program an absolute pain in the butt, get you paid for carbon on our program. I mean,
It's a good comment you made. When you're buying a piece of equipment, don't look at the equipment you're buying. Look at the dealer you're about ready to have a relationship with.
yeah, is it a Quonset hut or is it a nice facility that's going to get you a service?
But then again, on the other hand, okay, we have 14 service trucks. You have 14 service trucks and they're never at the shop. Your guys are always busy as shit. Your shop is always full. And then you look at another brand dealership next door and there's machines moving. They got a small shop that ain't real busy and 3 service trucks and the guy's sitting around looking like they're bored. I don't know. Maybe a busy service department isn't really that great of an indicator of a successful dealership. I mean, maybe it is successful on paper for the dealership owners because they're making a lot
Yeah.
of money in the service department. But I'd rather buy equipment that like doesn't have to have a service truck sitting beside it 2 days a week.
Well, what you're seeing there is market share. So John Deere owns market share, especially in the plains in the Midwest. So they're busy because they have 70% market share. So
I get that. I
yeah,
get that.
I don't
It'll
want to go down the equipment life anymore, but I was in that for almost a decade from Caterpillar to John Deere. So uh, have some horror stories and some wins. So,
I'm partial to Komatsu.
mhm.
Doesn't seem
Okay.
like service truck sitting by a Komatsu too much.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with that.
What else do we need to talk about with carbon? Talked about who makes good projects. We've talked about Pasture Map Plus. Tell me a little bit more about Pasture Map Plus and what's cool about it. And can anybody use Pasture Map, or do you have to have a
Yeah.
Grassroots Carbon contract?
Nope. Anybody can use Pasture Map. You can go to our website, click on the Pasture Map link, sign up. I believe there's couple of a free week or something like that you can try it out. The pricing structure has changed recently. I'm not familiar with the pricing structure now, but I know it's based on number of team members you need and number of cattle that you have. But Pasture Map took all the things that I used to do from paper, like my paper grazing chart on a drafting desk, from highlighting weeks. They put that into a usable format to where I can now click an icon of a cow, move it to subdivision 2, take a picture of when I moved in, take a picture of when I moved out. And then I can export my grazing plan. So if you have to show your grazing chart to the Equip or NRCS or whatever it may be, you can export grazing charts from there. I'm not sure the format they're going to accept, but it should be good enough to prove that you're moving cows at least. But yeah, I mean, Pasture Map's a great app for setting up your infrastructure, your maps, and just tracking everything you're doing. My favorite thing about it is being able to take a picture of when I move into a paddock, days later when I move out. And then when I come back around, I can check it again and say, okay, this is what it looked like last March. Then, we're always shifting where we're grazing. So we're never going to start back in the same pasture. But I wouldn't know that if I didn't have historical data from Pasture Map or what used to be a notebook where I had things drawn out and no trim. So,
Just
but
piles
yeah,
of
it's
legal pads and acres of
yeah,
wall charts,
scribbled
grazing
on
charts.
scribbled on notebooks everywhere. And yeah, um, you can use it on your phone. You can use it on your desktop. Uh, it is user friendly. There was some, if you were a historic Pasture Map customer and you gave up on it, I would say over a year ago, try us out again. Pasture Map Plus is the new app. It is, it has, I think, been improved tremendously from when I first started here.
For the guy that probably had, like, way too many records in the database, it's looks faster and much
Yeah.
smoother and much more consistent on being able to sync records and stay updated. You don't have the desync problems between devices like we had
Yeah.
3, 4 years ago. It's much better.
Yeah. So, I mean, in technology, as everybody knows, you're not still running an iPhone 3. Pasture Map came out, I think, in 2014, around there. Um, and it was
Oh,
still somewhat built on that same infrastructure. Uh, so occasionally in the tech world, you have to, you know, burn the boats and rebuild. So it was time for that.
nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts, what and this is my impression of it from somebody from the outside that doesn't know how
Mhm.
to code at all. Um, but from talking with George and Christine, George
Mhm.
is the guy that wrote it. Okay, George was actually the engineer that wrote Pasture Map. I think it was originally written as an iPhone app.
Yep.
And then it was converted to you could access it through the browser. And then finally, like after another year and a half later, we finally got an Android app.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if anybody used the early version of the Android app for Pasture Map, like in 2018, 19, Pasture Map Plus is much, much better.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't use it back then, but I've used it for about the past year and a half and seen the changes, and it's it's good. It's good. And if when you use Pasture Map on a carbon program, we don't have to pester you throughout the year, which we never want to do. We don't want to bother you throughout the year for your grazing plans. Because that is something that you share with us, your grazing plans, your grazing charts. You do an end of the year kind of summary with Reed and how you've probably done it. Your certification, application, recertification meetings you have. So we don't have to bother you for a lot of that data because it's in Pasture Map and we can just export it out and have it ready to go. We'll fact check things with you, but outside of that, it's a way for you to have your freedom on your ranch, just monitor and measure what you're doing. For the most part, we're going to leave you alone until it's time to send you some money.
Yep. So Reed just emailed me, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I had to do kind of a mid-year check-in. I think it took me less than 10 minutes to go through the Google form. But I always put in December when I see Reed's name on my caller ID because I know he's going to give me a Christmas present.
I love that guy. His favorite thing in the world is calling people and telling them they have a check coming. Like around that time of the year when he gets to make those calls, he feels like Santa. I guess he loves it. It's a good time of year for him.
I mean,
we love it too.
He throws around a lot of checks with 5-6 figures on them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say this. When I started, we were telling people that we paid out $250,000, I think, or $500,000. Right now, I want to say we're $7 or $8 million we paid ranchers. And by the end of the year, projections are looking to be closer to 11 or $13 million that ranchers have actually gotten paid. So that's one thing you should check against competing companies is how much I don't care about how many acres you've signed up that much. Tell me how many dollars you've actually paid to ranchers. Because I've heard people been in carbon contracts for 2 or 3 years and never gotten a paycheck. So, what are you even doing there? So find a company that's going to actually pay you what you deserve to get paid.
I like it. Well, unfortunately, Jones, I've scheduled way too much crap today, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you working with me, and I want to be respectful of your time. But I also want to give you the last word. We still got some time, so
we are really excited to help and work with ranchers rebuilding soil, storing carbon, things like that. A good partnership we have that we didn't touch on, and I really should have touched on it earlier, was a partnership with the Audubon Conservation the Bird Society, Audubon Conservation Ranching Program.
Yes.
If you're signed up with Audubon and you're a Audubon Conservation Rancher that's certified bird friendly, things like that, you're going to get an extra additional on top of your carbon payment per credit. So if you're an Audubon friendly certified ranch, they're those guys, and reach out to us. We have a partnership. Reach out to me. Your regional guy probably has my email or phone number, or you have it in your inbox because they blasted it to their ranchers. Get a hold of me. If you're one of our customers listening and you don't know that we're offering this program, tell me or tell Reed. Okay.
I didn't know you were offering this program, and I'm in the ACR.
Yep. So we inked that deal a little while back, and maybe like 2 months ago or so.
Okay.
So you're going to get an extra little kicker on top of it, every one of your credit. But if you're an Audubon ranch, sign up with us. you're going to get extra money as long as you maintain your certification throughout the program.
That's that's also that's for the Audubon folks, but that's something that's kind of been needed for their conservation ranching program is, a little bit of kickback for the rancher. Cause previously it's like, I'm going to spend the time to go through and get in this program and hang the sign on the door. But
Yeah.
that,
It-
that $5 gets me a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be way more than $5. So, it's a good deal for us. And they are very much aligned with the same things we're aligned with. If it's better for the birds, it's better for the cows, it's better for the wildlife, it's better for the soil. We're directly in line there with each other. And, I hear far too often and it kind of hurts that, well, they call us, I don't have cows because I like quail too much. That doesn't make a lot of sense what you said. And it's hard to say that to people, but if you're grazing right, you have more biodiversity across your ranch above and below the soil. You generally have more birds. If you're Audubon certified, you're going to get an extra payment. We're aligned. It's a great program for ranchers to be a part of, both of them. So,
Well, very cool. Do we have another conversation about that later, or you and I good on it?
I'll shoot Reed a text.
Okay.
And I don't know what all is needed. I assume you have a certificate. So
yeah, somewhere
along those lines.
Yep. And I made sure I was certified this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So maintain that. You get an extra bump on your credits. That's a program that we're offering, kind of a la carte. Thanks for taking care of the birds. We love the birds. Audubon obviously loves them. They're one of the bird conservation groups that does not hate cattle, which is a good partnership for us to have. So yeah, let us know about that. And outside of that, we're just excited that we have continuously paid ranchers every year we've been in business for storing CO2 and ranching better. And we're excited about the new programs. We're ready to get people on them. So we've signed several ranches on Carset, but we're ready to blow them both up and get them going huge. We've crossed the 1 million acre mark. So we're moving and grooving, man. I'm excited.
You feel like I've said, God, I don't know when is the first time you heard me say carbon gold rush? Probably 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you think it's starting to really pick up steam?
Yeah, I do, especially with some of the interest that we're getting from some of these new buyers and some of the exciting things I can't wait to announce. Obviously I can't do it, but I'm some of the things that we're working on. It's very exciting, and it's a good time to get into a program of Grassroots because the buyers are there and we're paying ranchers and we're super excited about it.
I think it's super cool that companies like the two that come to mind are going to be Microsoft and Nestle, because they've been trying to clean up their environmental image for a long time. And I know that we talked a little bit about Microsoft and some of the projects that they've been involved in and how much they have paid previously for credits. Nestle's not a whole lot different in that respect. They've paid a lot of money for low quality credits in the past. And it seems like, these companies that are coming to Grassroots, Microsoft, Nestle, the companies that have been here, Marathon and Shopify that are trusted since the beginning, they're figuring it out. They're like, okay, this grassland credit is a quality thing. These are quality credits. Grassroots can deliver. We're going to continue to try to invest in them.
Yeah, we've had a couple buyers put in an order that wasn't a small order for Grassroots. Then we meet the order requirements with high quality carbon credits. And then next year they'd come in with a 2, 3, or 4x amount of credits they want to buy the following year. So that's one thing we have a good track record on, is delivering our credits and paying our ranchers, which is the most important thing for a carbon company to be able to do. Pay your ranchers, deliver your carbon credits. If you can't do that, then, go sell shoes, go do something else. Yeah.
All right. Great stuff. where can people get a hold of you if they want to know more? Where do you want to send people to start the process of getting a carbon contract or a car SEP through Grassroots Carbon?
Yep. So the car stamp, well, it's going to go the same place. So you go to what's your Grassroots Carbon / reboot. Is that what it is?
I believe so.
Yeah, I have to check on that. But you can go there. You can go to our website. You can go through Brian's link. You can submit an application, contact us form, and it will go directly to me or one of my other salesmen. You can reach out to me directly. My email is hunter.jones@buildgrassroots.com. But you can find us online, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. All the socials, hit us up, get us our emails on our website. But yeah, that's the way to get a hold of us. Call Brian, tell him to give phone number to you, whatever. So, yeah, you can get a hold of us pretty easily. We're not hard to get a hold of.
And you're occasionally at conferences, meetings. You guys certainly have a presence on the Regenerative Ranching conference circuit.
Yeah. I wish I was coming to Lakin. I thought I was, but I cannot. But I'm trying to get a guy there.
I don't think I'm going to be able to go. I've got kind of a schedule conflict.
I do too.
There's another important meeting that I need to go to on Thursday.
Yeah.
Man, I really love that Bottom Line conference out of Lakin. It's just a great,
Me too.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. And, so, Regenerate's coming up in this fall. National Grazing Lands Coalition's coming up this fall. I'm doing some Society for Range Management stuff. We're going to one in Kentucky. So, yeah, see us at the event. Come by the booth, talk to us. We're generally going to have a carbon credit and a Pasture Map person there if we can swing it that way. So come see us and reach out however you want to reach out. We'll get you signed up. We try to keep it as simple as we can, as painless as we can. The application process is kind of us. You say that you're interested if you're willing to spend 30 minutes to do an application. So we need a little dedication. We're going to give you a lot. So.
Sounds great. And I might see you out in Tucson at 9 NGLC.
Really? Yeah, I'll be there.
Maybe Regenerate.
I'm not sure if I'll be at Regenerate, but one of my guys will be for sure. I have I got drawn for a Coos deer tag in Southern Arizona in November. So
we'll go do that. That'll be a lot of fun.
I'm very excited about that. It's the second year. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, we just have we had a deal with Birdwell and Clark coming up through Texas Ag Land Trust in October. That'll be good. So October is going to be a lot of rain driving.
Tell Debbie and Emery I said hi.
Will do. I tried to be his friend so bad. I'm gonna break the code.
One of these days, I'm going to show up in their driveway with a camera and microphones and get Emery on the podcast.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way he'd do this for an hour and a half.
Yeah. He's speaking on a panel at that deal. I'll send you a link to it, but he's speaking on a panel, and Brad, our CEO, will be speaking there as well at their ranch coming up. I think it's Working Land Summit through Tolt, but a lot of other state easements will be there represented. So it's a good program. So I'm excited to hear that panel.
Me too.
But,
all right.
Cool.
Very cool. I got to get going. I scheduled way too much crap today. So,
all right. I'll leave you alone.
Thanks for your time, brother. We'll catch you on the road.
Thank you. We'll see y'all.